We already have concussion substitutes in cricket. The IPL this time has shown us impact substitutes. But in light of Nathan Lyon's injury in the Lord's Test, we're wondering whether it's time for cricket to introduce proper injury substitutions the way you see in so many sports. That is what we've gathered our ESPN Cricket for Run Order crew for on this latest installment. Welcome to George, Dustin, Andrew, Osman, Matt. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. The floor is open. Injury substitutions? Yay, nay?
Test cricket is hard, and having to play 3.5 days, 10 versus 11, one bowler short. Like, you want to see two teams be as competitive with each other as possible. And so, yes, I would say that we shouldn't disadvantage one team if they lose someone through legitimate injury.
Yeah, in this latest example, of course, Nathan Lyon's injury didn't matter too much to the end result. But Andrew, it is so easily conceivable if you lose a bowler on day one of a test, it will end up damaging your chances through the game.
I'm completely opposed to substitutes. Probably on balance across the board in professional sport. I think the sport, generally speaking, has got worse because of the ability to take out fatigue as a factor. I give two examples. First up, I really don't like the impact substitutions that have come in the IPL, not least because I worry that they will undermine the classic role of the all-rounder. And secondly, I refer to rugby as an example of a sport that I think has got a lot worse because of substitutes. Players were different shapes and sizes. Now everyone is exactly the same size, exactly the same weight, exactly the same likelihood to hit each other like a ton of bricks. And then you end up with, towards the end of the game, you get the heavy brigade coming off the bench at 60, 70 minutes to obliterate a tired opponent. And if you extrapolate that into cricket, I think there's a danger that you do end up with the substitutions and the ability to tinker your team as the game goes along. I think you just lose a bit of the essence of the mind games and the balance and all the other things that I think do actually make cricket quite special and quite precious.
On the subject of rugby, Miller, was there not a case where I think they allowed substitutes in rugby for players when they were cut, and there was somebody who actually used fake blood?
It was, absolutely. I mean, I think that's we could extrapolate that to cricket as well. If you suddenly discover that, I really shouldn't have picked my spinner on this pitch, start hobbling, we'll sub him out and bring in another fast bowler. I mean, these are things that could happen. If a freak injury occurs, it happened with James Anderson in 2019 at Edgbaston. These things happen. They can be series defining, but, it's all part of an ongoing process of cricket's rich history. You have to factor these things in. They will factor themselves out equally in the long run, in my opinion.
I did initially think when the question was put out, it makes sense. It makes logical sense to allow something like that. But if you actually look back and through incidents, it's not something that happens that often. Like, it does happen, I guess, often enough to a degree, but it doesn't happen so often that it's become like some widespread plague on the game that you're constantly having continuous series of matches where some guys got injured, some players got injured, and so they have disadvantaged or handicapped their own team. It doesn't happen that often. On the occasions that it does, it's just one of those things about the game. I don't think it's crying out for a solution.
The reason I think that this has come to a head in the past few days, though, is the fact that Lyon sort of hobbled out to bat, and you were left in I think, frankly, ridiculous situation where the best situation for Australia to win that test match was for Lyon to get concussed. And concussion is a horrible thing. It has long-term, long-lasting effects, and it's something that was effectively being talked about as though it was an optimum solution for that situation in the test match. Now, if we get to that situation, then something has, in my opinion, gone clearly wrong with the rules of the game, and the playing conditions, where you're effectively incentivizing something really bad medically to happen to someone. Surely in situations like that, we can come up with a situation where an independent doctor can analyze someone and say, look, you've clearly torn your calf. This is beneficial for the sport, beneficial for everyone involved, for Australia in that case, to be able to sub in a like-for-like spinner, which they had in the squad in Todd Murphy, and get on with the game, rather than sort of see this as some kind of, the beauty in the struggle and all this sort of thing. I didn't see a lot of beauty in that innings from Nathan Lyon. I saw someone, putting himself through serious pain and risking aggravating an already pretty bad injury.
that conversation never came up from within the team, though, right? About the concussions, about the optimum solution.
No, but I agree with
but would you dispute that? That was the best thing for to have feasibly happened. If you take the medical side out of it, that's something that the optimum result in terms of sheerly Australia's chances of winning this game and drawing a line at the end of the fifth day, the best thing that could have happened was them being able to sub in a bowler. If Lyon had gone and tried to find a COVID ward in a hospital and infected himself, it would have been exactly the same thing. And neither of those is a logical place to be in. As a game, we need to work out a way in which we can stop that being the optimum solution, because it's clearly, from a medical point of view, it's clearly two very nasty things to happen to someone. And we should accept that if we can tell that someone has COVID, we can tell someone has concussion, we can also get an independent doctor to say this guy has a serious injury and can't last the next 3 days of the match.
Look, ultimately, it's a decision that the team is allowed to make, that players are allowed to make themselves. Like, if Australia were very serious about it, I know Pat Cummins said at the post-match interview that he wasn't entirely happy with Lyon going out there. Well, you're the captain, the coach is there. It should be kind of on you guys to just say to Lyon that no, you're not going out there. No matter how much you think you can help the cause, this is not good for you. This is not good for cricket, and you just got to sit back and shut up, essentially, and not go out there. I mean, it surely would have been in their control to put a halt to this, right?
I haven't seen a run order with Dustin not talking.
No, so I think in theory, the idea of injury sub sounds good. But I have a kind of couple of questions where I think it'll be slightly difficult to officiate it. One is, how do you define the like-for-like player? We've already had an incident with a concussion sub that caused controversy where Ravindra Jadeja in a game was subbed out and Yuzvendra Chahal was brought in, and the Australians clearly thought that was not a like-for-like sub because Chahal is just a much better T20 bowler than Jadeja. And Jadeja had already done his job as the all-rounder. He had batted. So then I guess you'd have to have a system where the team already names one replacement or one injury sub for each player, but no two players are alike. I mean, for example, there might be a bowler who's a better batter than James Anderson, who comes in as a replacement for him. The second thing would be, would you then not risk perhaps players who already have some kind of pre-existing injury playing games? Because now very often that player won't be risked because you think, okay, even if this person has a niggle, they might aggravate it during the game and then not be able to bowl anymore. But whereas if you have this option of an injury sub, if someone has a slight niggle, you can say, okay, let's go out there, try bowling a few overs, and if you're injured, we can always replace you.
I'll answer both of those in one fell swoop. The first one is that we already have nominated concussion replacements for every player ahead of a test match, so that's sorted. And the second one is the umpire has ultimate discretion. We saw in the 2019 World Cup, Andre Russell going into games with a knee injury, trying to bowl, not being able to, and standing on the boundary edge being told he couldn't have a substitute fielder because he'd come into this game with a knee injury. So it's all sorted, get them written in, injury replacements in time for the third test, done and done.
Okay then, show of hands before we wrap this. Substitutes for muscular injuries in cricket. Who says yes?
Yeah, definitely.
2 yeses. Are the rest of you saying no then?
I say no because I'm such an old wreck that the only thing I can do usefully is prop up an end while hobbling with a bad back. So I don't want to be subbed out, thanks.
I'm a soft no. It's not like something that.
Yeah, I'll abstain.
Here's a 2-all. Okay, fine. Let it be a tie. If it matters, I'm saying yes, just because I feel like with everything we've discussed, this, if it happens, would lead to even more spirit of cricket debates. Aren't we always up for it?
Good.
This was the ESPN Cricket 4 Run Out.